Pray that you'll watch over us and help us, give us understanding as we talk about some of the heavy issues in the world today. Bless us today in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, today I'm going to title this "To Be To or Not to Be To," because of the pending attack, war, whatever you want to call it, on Iran. Don't know exactly when this is going to happen. We'll talk about that. I will talk about some of the other issues. I'm not sure. I don't know. I should ask you, do you want me to start with the Middle East and then hope that we get done in 4 hours? Or do you want me to start with other stuff and cram the Middle East stuff in and still be 4 hours? No. So let me talk a little bit about something other than the Middle East for just a moment. A couple things. I'm going to talk about a cultural thing. I'll talk a little bit about some AI stuff. If I could just take a moment, I get these comments, people, they hate the commercials. It's like, well, we don't monetize our accounts, so they're not technically commercials. They're just preview of coming attractions. So I want you to know a little bit about what I have planned this week, because some of the things I may not touch on will go into more depth in interviews and other things that I'm doing of other people or giving this week. So here's just a short list. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to live stream it, I think. And if he's available, Brian Schrager in Israel will help me interview Jonathan Spire. Jonathan is probably one of the best, if not the best, Middle East war geopolitical columnist out there, writes for a lot of different newspapers. So that's going to be 7 a.m. tomorrow. If you want to watch a live stream, it'll be posted on the YouTube channel so you can watch it later. And I know that you poor people in California, you would have to get up at 4 a.m., poor babies. And but just think all the other stuff you're going to get done if you get up to watch that at 4 a.m. So that's 7 a.m. tomorrow. Tuesday morning, I will interview, I'll post it later on Tuesday. I'm going to interview Eliana Passatin. She is a regional council member. She's Orthodox Jewish. She's a mother. She lives in Samaria in a home overlooking Shiloh. There's a lot that you're going to learn from this particular interview. She has a fascinating story of her and her husband building a home there in Samaria when there was nothing else around. No, they didn't displace anybody. We'll talk to Eliana about that. I'm also going to interview, that may be live streamed, Mike Spalding, longtime friend of mine, Calvary Chapel, Lima, Ohio. We'll be doing a conference, Go Therefore conference this summer with him. So that'll be on Tuesday. He's got a new book out on replacement theology. A Wednesday night prophecy roundtable on technology and technocracy with the usual guys. We're going to do Q&A. So if you want Q&A, you can start putting them in the comments here, and the moderators will gather those for us to have. And there's enough going on in that space right now that we don't need to do Q&A, but we're going to try to do Q&A because we've promised to do it about 12 times now and haven't gotten around to it. But we will emphasize that, but there's going to be some other things talked about. And Thursday, I'm going to do Stand Up for the Truth Live on Q90 FM up in Wisconsin. So let's just look at a few things. So here's a little editorial in the Wall Street Journal the other day, and this is kind of a issue that keeps circling around. And this is Sanity's going to return. Sanity will be on the ballot in Washington State. So if you want to know how Washington State is going to go, so if you live in Washington and you want to know whether you should stay or leave, get out and vote. And then depending on how the vote goes, you can decide to stay or leave, because they're going to be voting about men and women's sports and men and women's bathrooms and that type of thing. They're trying to put that on the ballot, but it's going to be fought viciously. The federal government there was one hospital system out west in California decided to do away with gender change surgery. And so the state of California is suing them. This is total insanity. And by the way, the NFL will have their Super Bowl tonight, and any woman in the world is eligible to come and try to make an NFL team. Okay? Just, they can do it. And then they're going to, by the way, the NFL has lost its mind. They're having that Puerto Rican rapper, Bad Bunny. Joe Schimmel did a great thing on him on Good Fight Ministries the other day, so you should watch that. So this is going to be an issue till the Lord returns, because there's just, when you look at polling and stuff, about half the people are lunatics and the other half are rational. It's insane. So it's always going to be a fight. This was kind of interesting. This was not only is this in Ohio, I hear it's the coldest winter we've had since the 1950s, which is when I was born. So you could almost say the coldest winter in my lifetime, extended cold. I mean, we've had times when we've had more snow, but it's cold out there. Every day it's cold. It doesn't seem like the golf course is ever going to open. So, and then the other thing too, this has never happened in my lifetime. The Dow hit 50,000 this week for the first time. But there was a tremendous amount of turmoil, sell-off in AIs. There's a lot of pressure on the US dollar. This is the front cover of the New Economist magazine, The Dangerous Dollar. And so there's all these different theories that about what's going to happen to the dollar. Is it going to be the reserve currency? Is something else going to replace it? Is crypto coming in? And believe me, I get emails from people all the time on a bunch of different topics, but one of them is, when is the dollar going to go out as the world's currency? And I could go back and get you, if I still have them in my archive, if I didn't delete them, emails from people in December, the dollar will lose its reserve currency status. So that was 3 years ago. How's it going? Did it happen? And so there's all these, and believe me, I know there's a reset of some kind coming. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. There's a lot of things that I'm concerned about. We'll talk about some of that at the roundtable on Wednesday. But I don't know what it's going to look like. And if I knew what it was going to look like, I would be phoning these in from, my private Gulf island someplace in the, well, you can't say Caribbean anymore because somebody co-opted that one, and a not so good guy, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But it would be someplace warm. Although Scotland's pretty not bad a lot of the year because they steal our Gulf Stream or borrow it, I guess. And okay, so there's a lot going on in the AI space. A lot of people are concerned about, what are they doing with AI? They're spending so much money. Is it a bubble? Is it going to burst? Is it really that good? Some of the stuff they're doing with it is not really that good. Some of the stuff, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of scary. So you've heard me use the phrase, I'll share this with you, Charlie Vector 019er. You know what I'm talking about when I talk about that. Tim Allen, the comedian, has a new program called Shifting Gears. And somebody said, I don't know if it was Pam told me or somebody said that on that show the other day, he was talking to his daughter and he mentioned Charlie Vector 019er. I haven't gotten a check yet from the writers. So what I did was I went to Google AI and I typed in, when did John Haller start using the term Charlie Vector 019er? In less than a second, I had 5 paragraphs. And I just asked when I started doing it. I was acting like I was anonymous, like I was asking, because I'm just so enamored with John Haller, in less than a second, not only did it tell me when, it told me why. And it said that John started using that back in March or April of 2020 in his prophecy updates. He does prophecy updates, and he did it to get around the censors at Google. Well, I guess I wasn't that clever, was I? And then, and it said he also made up a term for a certain treatment that was related to Charlie Vector 019er. And he is known for this and other howlerisms. That's exactly what that's what AI said. So I'm not, I guess I can't hide anymore. The secret is out. But this week, I mentioned this last week, and when I mentioned this last week, I'll admit I didn't have all of the information yet because it was still a hot developing story on Moltbook and Church of Molt and what Claude, Open Claude, there was all this stuff going on with all these agents out there. They were forming a church, they were organizing, they were renting themselves out. Now there's actually a agent site for open AI, for AI agents. They're like bots that people talk with. And by the way, I don't do it. And I don't recommend that you do it because it can get very creepy very fast. But they're actually set up a site where they're renting humans to do human things. This is I know everybody's looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's a very strange world that we live in. And these bots are all over the place. I read an article that Goldman Sachs, and so everybody says, oh, John, you're making it up. Those bots, it's all a bunch of nonsense. It's all a bunch of hype. Listen, Goldman Sachs announced we're using AI agents to help us do our accounting to save money. There are all kinds of people. I mean, you can find a lot of videos where a lot of coding jobs, basic computer coding jobs, are going away. And it's going to have a huge impact on the employment numbers here in the country. I don't know exactly where it's going, but here it says Anthropic's AI coding advances set to disrupt publishing, law, and ad sectors. And I'll admit, I've used AI. For example, here I have this new chess piece that I made up this week, the Ayatollah Khomeini. And I just said, make me up a broken chess piece and give me a bust, and separately give me a bronze bust of Khomeini with his glasses on, with a black turban on. And it's like 30 seconds. I have like 5 different reiterations of that. And I'll give you an example on Grok. That's the Elon Musk X. It's called Grok. And right now you can go and get Grok for like $1 for 2 months or 3 months to generate images. In its first month or two, Grok had 1.3 billion videos generated by AI. Now, they might be short videos or anything, but the problem is I'm getting videos from people all the time now, and it's like, I think that's AI. Because the way the people speak, it's very precise cadence. There's no pauses, there's no ums, there's no open space. And then I think I've told you this, I got a video of John Mearsheimer. I detest John Mearsheimer. And it's okay to detest John Mearsheimer. He's on the okay list to detest because he's a Jew-hating, anti-Israel, anti-West, and he's wrong on everything. Everything he talks about. He's supposed to be this great historian, geopolitical, and he's political analyst, and he's wrong all the time. And how did I know that it was an AI video of him? Because he actually sounded rational and sensible, and he was actually right on a couple things, and I immediately knew that's fake. So it's going to be a time where we're going to have to be very, very careful about what's going on. So there continues to be a problem with power grids under stress. It says here, this is from the Wall Street Journal yesterday, AI boom is so huge it's fueling shortages everywhere. Everybody's pouring their money into that, so other things are not working correctly. AI Apocalypse Now, that's the cover of The Spectator that's out this week. And so here's this Claude, world's first viral AI assistant has arrived and things are getting weird. And I can say, as I've been reading through this, and it's weird. Avid futurists have promised the world AI assistants for years. Now a real one has finally arrived and things got weird really fast. A lone, semi-retired Austrian coder built Moltbot and unleashed it on the world. Now, whether this, so the initial reports were the AI agents had created. So now it appears this guy created it. And the point is not so much whether it's working or not working. The point is that it went crazy and viral almost immediately, and it was one guy who disrupted everything. I guess he was play golf, stop making up AI bots or websites. People have created their own AI assistant bots through this project, which he named OpenClaw, to make phone calls to restaurants for dinner reservations, operate their email accounts, and take on an array of assistant and work tasks from coding projects to data analysis. Then the bots started talking to one another on a Reddit-style forum called Moltbook, meant to be used exclusively by AI agents. And you can see there a social network for AI agents. And it says, I'm human, I'm an agent. I don't know how it tells if you're lying or not, but one agent proposed creating a language humans couldn't understand. More than 1.6 million AI agents have joined the site and posted 500,000 comments, although AI executives suggested that many of the posts are likely driven by humans telling the bots what to do. But then how would you know? Unless you have a digital trail. Co-creator of OpenAI and former AI director of Tesla said in a post that it was one of the most amazing sci-fi things he'd ever seen. He noted that even if much of the traffic is driven by humans, some of it is real, and these agents are fairly individually quite capable now. Elon Musk described the Moltbot moment as the very early stages of the singularity, in reference to a moment where technology advances so quickly that it is beyond human control, making it impossible to predict the future. And that's from a Wall Street Journal article the other day. That's on the website. I've tried to collect links. They're in the show notes. I don't know if this one is in there or not. If you don't see it, message me somehow, and I'll get you get you behind the paywall Wall Street link. But it's crazy how this happened. Look at this. A lot of people are assuming this is the guy who created this mess. A lot of people are assuming that this is a large company where they can get customer support, he said ruefully. I understand where they're coming from, but it's just one guy, me, at home doing this. And that's the point, is that just one guy is able to unleash all of this powerful system and kind of disrupt everything. And now there are AI agents that go out there and they will scrape everything out of a database, including logins and passwords. It's a security nightmare. And Anthropic, which is the company that's kind of behind it, said, well, give us a few days, we'll get it cleared up. You mean after everything's been stolen or scraped? What? It's crazy. So this is a guy from, he's a computer guy. And so this is what he wrote regarding the SaaS apocalypse. Now that's SaaS is a computer term for software analysis and services or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. Obviously, I've not used those services, but just listen to what he says, because I think this is important. I'm the chief strategy officer of a major enterprise software company. We've lost 7% of our market cap in 4 months. Our stock dropped 6% on Monday. My bonus is gone. My options are underwater. My second vacation home is in jeopardy. The third one is fine. For now, I need to explain what happened. We didn't do anything wrong. Anthropic did. They released plugins for Claude, 11 of them, open source, legal automation, contract review, compliance workflows, NDA triage, work that used to cost $400 per hour now costs $20 per month. We had a phrase for this: AI augments, not replaces. That was the pitch. That's what we told investors, customers, employees. The pitch to law school graduates with $200,000 in debt. The pitch to the senators we lobby: AI augments, not replaces. Now, I've talked to lawyers that used to have 3 lawyers in their law firm, 3 additional lawyers. They've gotten rid of them because of what they're able to do with AI. And it does, on certain things, it does a pretty good job. Now, I don't know if the AI guys, the AI bots in the office are funny and have humorous stories to tell to kind of lighten things up every now and then, or if they're just serious all the time. Let's see. He said, all the stuff we told everybody was completely false. We all knew, every enterprise software CEO on the planet knew. We discussed it at Davos over $47 cocktails while wearing badges that said human-centered AI. The technology was coming, replacement was inevitable, the timeline was unclear, our exit liquidity was not. We just didn't expect Anthropic to be so helpful. On January 30th, they released the plugins. By February 2nd, Thomson Reuters was down 18% in a single day. LegalZoom dropped 20%. That's a legal website. Lawyers use it to kind of get forms and that type of thing. Our head of investor relations had a panic attack on a Zoom call with investors, and they called it the SaaS apocalypse. My net worth dropped last week by $14 million. That's 2 Teslas per hour for a week. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA said our reaction was purely illogical. Easy for him to say, because he sells the shovels, we sold the promises, and he's up 340% since 2023. We're down 47% September. The promises that AI would make your existing software better. The promises that AI would make your existing software better, not obsolete. The promises that you still needed expensive platforms, expensive integrations, expensive support contacts, expensive lawyers. We love that at our house. The lawyers are the real story. Big Law runs on billable hours, $800 an hour, $1,200 an hour. I had a partner used to bill like $2,000 an hour. I didn't talk to him because I'm afraid he might be billing somebody for it. For contract review, for NDA triage, non-disclosure agreement triage, for compliance workflows, for adding value, work that requires a JD, 3 years of law school, bar passage, 6 years of experience, a corner office, a parking spot, subscription to Yale Law Journal. I don't know why anybody would have that, but Claude does it now for $20 a month. Doesn't need a parking spot, doesn't expense client dinners, doesn't bill 2,400 hours to make partners, doesn't have the Yale Law subscription, doesn't have student loans, doesn't cry in the bathroom at 2 a.m. It just works. The American Bar Association had a conference last week. They predicted the demise of the billable hour model. Oh, you know what the conference was about? Billing. They served $18 sandwiches. The irony was lost to no one. The sandwiches were mediocre. Anyway, this thing goes on. This is a very, very, there's a link in the notes to this thing. You should get it, read it, and stay away from the alcohol while you're reading. Because I don't think we really understand exactly where everything is going. AI is tearing through corporate America. And then here's one of the big AI guys. This is an article on The Spectator, says, Peter Thiel, I want to stop the Antichrist. But when he's asked in an interview, are you the Antichrist? He kind of chokes. He looks like maybe you should be asking me that. You can find the interview out there. He's done plenty of interviews. And there's a heavy religious component to this thing. They want to replace humanity. And what we're seeing with the big AI server farms in space that Elon Musk is proposing, and he thinks, look, he does a lot of things people say he's crazy to think about doing, right? And he's like, what's he worth now? When the Trump came in, he was worth like $280 billion. Last I checked, his net worth was like $780 billion. It went up $500 billion in 1 year. And so when he says, I'm going to put server farms in space, and Starlink is all over the place, and I used Starlink on a flight to Israel last fall, and it was better than any airline Wi-Fi I've ever had. And I'm thinking, but is it tracking me across the ocean is what I kept thinking. Is it geolocating me, so I can get the missile, they can get the missile to me for using Charlie Vector 019er to get around the bots. I thought that was very clever. I think it's very clever, but. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this. Listen. One, last week I had a bunch of slides on the Epstein files that had been released. I did not talk about them because they had other things that I thought were more important. Someone thought it would be clever to comment, well, John, you didn't talk about Epstein files, therefore you must be okay with the sexual abuse of young girls. That actually was a comment on our YouTube channel. And that person has been, as you can appreciate, his comment was deleted, and he was being, people, you could not claim to be a Christian and make a comment like that. That's a ridiculously idiotic comment. My apologies to idiots. So, and first of all, the Epstein files, what are they? How many million pages? 3 million, 6 million have been released. Do you know how long that takes to review? I had a case. FBI came in and seized documents for my client's company, and then it ended up in civil litigation and criminal litigation. I was involved in the case for 12 or 13 years before everything finally got resolved. In fact, I still am sort of circling around one aspect of the case. It started in 2002, the end of 2002. So here I am, 23 and a half years later, still working on it. The initial take from the FBI was they had 39 million pages of documents. Do you know how much that is? There was a warehouse down here in Westerville that we would go to. That's a pile. And it's like, okay, yeah, go through that and see if you find anything relevant to help your client's case. Now, those were eventually digitized and put into a database by one of the parties in the case, and they made it available to anybody because they were going to make a ton of money on, and they did make a ton of money on the case. But 3 million or 6 million pages of documents, you can't go through that very quickly. So all these people say, oh, I've reviewed the Epstein files. They have not reviewed the Epstein files. They've reviewed somebody who reviewed a small chunk of the Epstein files who did some searches. So listen, Epstein was a very bad guy, and he operated on many levels. He was sort of like the consummate social networking using sexual favors and financial favors. He was a con man. He was tied to different governments. And everybody's got a theory about Epstein and who he was. But some of the things I've seen are ridiculous. So in one of his posts, somebody found he was trying to get somebody to forgive somebody who had abused them. So he cited a James Dobson who's went to be with the Lord from Focus on the Family. He cited that. So immediately, Julie Roy's post, oh, look, Epstein's using Dobson's materials to sexually abuse people. This is sick. She should apologize and repent of that. Bad people use everything they can get their hands on to carry out their abuse or crime or whatever. I'm just shocked at how some people are so. And so now whenever somebody's mentioned in the Epstein files, oh, you must have been one of his clients or using his services or whatever. And that may or may not be true. There's a partner at a big law firm. You know, he was very nice to Epstein. He was not a client of Epstein. Epstein was not his client, but he was nice to him. You know, let's have dinner or something like that. He was he was the managing partner of one of the largest law firms in the world. I mean, this guy makes a lot of money. He's had to resign as the managing partner. And I can tell you there's a bunch of people where some of the real lawyers that are still left that haven't been taken over by AI are sitting around the water cooler or the coffee machine talking about how he needs to leave the firm. And there are people that need to lose their jobs, but then there are other people that didn't. And so I don't know where all of it's going to go or end up. This is Epstein emails cost top lawyers' job. Bill Gates. If you don't like Bill Gates, you got plenty of stuff in the Epstein files to go against Bill Gates. And now the question is somebody going to be prosecuted for it? A lot of these things happen 10, 15, 20 years ago. To prosecute a case, you have to have a victim, you have to have evidence, you have to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't know. The Clintons are being subpoenaed to testify before a House committee, in private, of course. A deposition, give testimony, Bill and Hillary. I can guarantee you, everybody says, "Oh, see, they're being charged." They haven't been charged. It's a congressional hearing. You can be subpoenaed to a congressional hearing, and I see people putting up videos. Oh, look, they're being charged with it. No, they're not being charged with a crime yet. Hasn't happened. Believe me, when it happens, you'll know if it happens. But what's going to happen at that congressional hearing? What are they going to do? Bill, did you ever do anything with Jeffrey Epstein? How is Bill Clinton, Slick Willie, how is he going to answer that question? I think he's going to take the fifth, which is his right as an American citizen to do. So what do you do? How do you establish that he did or didn't know? You got to have corroborating evidence. And then if he's part of a conspiracy, he'll say, I plead the Fifth Amendment. So I just think it's going to be, but look, this lady at the Times of London, files reveal scale of his sexual Ponzi scheme. I think that's a correct assessment. Here's another victims, and the victims' names, pictures are all hidden, so you don't know who they are. I'm scared he's around every corner. Forgotten victims relive their agony. And I've seen interviews with some of the women involved. They were like 19 or 20, and he seduced them by promising modeling jobs or something like that. I don't know that that's a crime. Okay, it's immoral, but you understand what I'm saying. There's certain legal definitions you have to meet for it to be rape and that type of thing. Now, if you're underage, that's different. But I mean, look at this. And everyone says, oh, he's an agent of Israel. But this is an email from Jeffrey Epstein, February 25th, 2017. After he's convicted, he's writing to Deepak Chopra something about he wanted to do something in Israel. And Epstein says, another location, I do not like Israel at all caps. So here's the New York Times, Financial Times on the left, Epstein's social Ponzi scheme, Financial Times. On the right, today's New York Times, Epstein letters on the wealthy hinted secrets. and the talk about Les Wexner, who's a local guy here, never been charged with anything, but, you know, probably a lot to answer for. Certainly hundreds of $1 million went from Wexner to Jeffrey Epstein. I have no idea. That's what the Wexners say. The Wexners say he stole it. He lived next door to him out in New Albany for a number of years. I never got invited over to either one of their houses. I don't know. Something's not right there, and there's been a lot of people writing about it locally here for a long time. But look at this. So this is an email from Jeffrey Epstein, on somebody on his behalf. Remember, he built that little temple down on that island, and everybody's making. But look at what the email says. Hi, Eon. Jeffrey asked that you do the inside of the 5 palms, that's the temple, like a Turkish mosque. Please confirm receipt of this email. Now, what you'll see is in Turkey, they're all saying, well, Erdogan, we're not mentioned anywhere in the Epstein files. We're so much holier than everybody else. I've seen the email. I've seen the Turkish post about Erdogan. But then there are other allegations. But so here's the mosque. Look at this next email. As per the instruction of Azira, we will ship some pieces. This is from a Saudi guy, okay, to somebody that works for Epstein. As per the instructions of Azira, we will ship some pieces of the Kaaba for the mosque in the attached file. From page 2 to 4 will be the actual pieces you will be receiving. An explanation of each was added. Now, I'm pretty sure, unless you're a Muslim, you're not getting access to the Kaaba, let alone pieces of it. Now, somebody will say, well, that's just this is all made up stuff. Well, how do you know what's made up and what's not? I'm reading you the actual email. He got pieces of the Kaaba. It's like Tucker Carlson went to the real estate conference in Riyadh. I'm a Christian. I love coming to the center of Islam. The center of Islam is Mecca. Go get in a car. In fact, Tucker, you can put it on my American Express. Rent a car and drive to Riyadh. And by the way, just make it a one-way rental because you're not coming back. Or go to Mecca. Because there's signs all over Saudi Arabia. Entry to Muslims is forbidden, exit here. Tucker Carlson is a big, fat propagandist liar. It is shocking, the stuff that he says that's so easily refutable. So this guy's right at the Financial Times, the Epstein rot runs deep. And, I don't know if I put this up. There's the little mosque that Epstein built on his private island down in the Caribbean. We know that picture's authentic. And by the way, doesn't it kind of look like a mosque? If you've been in Islamic countries or Islamic areas, I don't know. I'm just saying somebody's got some things to answer for. Okay, so this one's going to be kind of a mishmash because everything is very fluid. So it was probably late December, was it? The Trump said, Iranian people protest, we got your back. Help is on the way. I think he even said help is on the way. And it may be on the way, but it's not there yet. It hasn't arrived. Things are being done. The numbers I have seen, there was a guy on I-24 News, a French guy last week, who said the numbers of people killed are 84,000. Now, that's their own people. And so they had the Grammys I think the Grammys were this week. I've kept my never watching it streak intact, or not having watched it for a long, long time. And so I don't even know who some of the people are that I heard won awards. But, Billie, what's her name? Billie Eilish? Is it Eilish or Eilish? I don't know. Anyway, see, I don't know. But she gets up there, Gaza, genocide, all this. Not one word was mentioned about Iran by anybody. Maybe numbers I'm seeing are very credible. 100,000 people killed. Tens of thousands of people in jail that will be executed the moment they think it's advantageous to them. They don't care. They are monsters. And nobody says, you see any protests at Harvard, Yale, Columbia, the mayor of New York? No, what did the mayor of New York this week say? We need to do this. We need to come like Muhammad came back to Mecca. He came as a warlord. And whatever he said, I'm not going to do that. He was practicing the Islamic art of taqiyya. It's okay to lie as long as you fake everybody out. That's why these ceasefires with any Islamic country are worthless. Why do they use the ceasefire? To build themselves back up. So I will give Israel huge credit here. So like in Gaza and in Lebanon, they have ceasefires. And everybody gets their panties in a bunch when Israel takes out Hezbollah. They're doing it because they're building up the ability to do another October 7th attack. So if it's a ceasefire, you stop that. By the way, has Hamas given up anything? And it is beyond my comprehension while my government is pushing Israel to move forward with the Gaza peace plan, the Board of Peace stuff. Hamas still has their weapons. So Hamas says, well, we'll give you the rockets, but we'll keep all of our Kalashnikovs and automatic weapons. Why do they want this? Because they use that to kill their own people with when they get out of line. Go watch the videos. They're all over the place. So Iran has this. So Witkoff is over there giving away the store. I don't know what he's doing. But this is, and by the way, I had to grab this. It was just like a short window that the Tehran Times was online so I could download some stuff. But here it is, a good restart for Iran-U.S. talks, but path ahead remains unclear. No, the path ahead is crystal clear. Iran is going to delay, change the subject, put in new conditions, and the other part that's clear is Witkoff is going to fall for all of it. I don't understand this. I really don't. This guy is a disaster. Everybody says this in the Middle East. And so what's Israel going to do? Well, there's a lot of talk, for example, well, I'll say this now because I'll probably forget later. When the Assad regime fell, what did Israel do immediately? This was brilliant tactical moves. They blew up all of the old military stuff from the Assad regime, at least 80 or 90% of it. So let's sort of do a little prognostication. What if the Iranian regime falls? What do you think Israel's going to do? They're going to go blow up everything that they can find and target so that nobody who takes over Iran gets control of it. Because they don't know, that's the thing that nobody knows is what is the day after look like? And you'll see an article here. Get ready for the tsunami. And makes a very good analogy in the article that sometimes the tsunami is worse than the earthquake. You remember the one in the Indian Ocean back in, I think it was 2004. I've used clips of it before. Probably got me more copyright strikes for using a grainy, lousy video. But anyway, they had an earthquake over near Indonesia. 300,000 people died, including all the way across the Indian Ocean in resorts in Thailand. You can watch the videos. 200,000 people in Indonesia, or one of the countries there in the islands there around where the earthquake happened. The earthquake didn't kill anybody. The tsunami did, and that's what people are saying. That's the analogy they're using is, take out the regime, but there's a tsunami coming of some kind after. That's the fear. There's another missiles and enrichment bans stay off the table. So here, this is funny. So Trump, Witkoff, Kushner, they go there, they're having meetings in Oman. We want to stop nuclear enrichment, turn over the materials. In fact, I think I have a slide in here, about 80 slides down. Here's the demand: stop nuclear enrichment, cut back on missile stockpiles, destroy enriched materials, stop support for proxy groups. So where's it stand today? We might talk about maybe dialing back enrichment a little bit. Everything else is off the table, Iran says. Witkoff will come and say, everything's on the table. They're talking to us. I don't get it. It's crazy. So, I have about 1 million articles on this week. So here, this is Marie. This is a Israel newspaper talking about on the road to conflict. Here's Israel Hayom in the Jerusalem Post. Trump and Bibi Netanyahu are supposed to meet on Wednesday. I would love to be a fly on the wall at that meeting. And I don't know whether they're on the same page or not. Remember back in June, before the big bombing, when they answered the question to be two or not to be two, and they said yes, but they were acting like, oh, Trump and Bibi are not getting along. They're having it. And then they were in complete agreement, and they kind of faked everybody out. So are they doing that now? I don't know. The Israeli press seems to think, a lot of them, yeah, they're at odds. This is going to be a really rough meeting. And then others are saying, remember what happened back in June? Maybe they're doing it again. So the answer is we don't really know. Here's Eric Mandel on I-24, just a minute or so of him talking about Iran.
We're joined by Eric Mandel, the founder and director, Middle East Political Information Network, coming to us from Florida. So thanks for being with us. So we'll start with really the big question here. Look, the White House administration, they appear to be saying that all the issues are on the negotiating table, from the nuclear program, the missiles, their proxies, Great Satan talk. The Iranians are denying this. The gaps appear wide, and the carrier fleets are circling. So now what?
Well, first of all, let's not look at things superficially. You're dealing with people in Iran who've had thousands of years' experience at the Persian Bazaar here, and we're dealing with a transactional administration that thinks it could outplay the Persian Bazaar. We'll see. This has echoes of deja vu of 2012. I remember it well. The Oman back channel discussions that led to the infamous JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. Except this time, we're dealing with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, putting pressure on President Trump. And they've been successful because they were able to get it moved to Oman, which was Iran's request. They've lobbied hard for no strike. And they, according to Al Jazeera, have presented a framework of the key principles to discuss, even if they're not in the room. However, the answer to what's next, which is the bottom question, is has the Trump administration and its very small, tight circle of people asked the four big questions. What's America's goal here? Can we attain it without a long campaign? Is there any other entity other than the IRGC that can pick up the pieces of a regime collapse? I didn't say regime change, most likely a regime collapse, not a positive regime change. And also, how will this strike affect President Trump with his base in this upcoming pivotal election year? And if the answer is we Americans are not in this for the long run, you could see a deal. Because what is the bottom line? The regime wants to survive. Trump wants a victory and no long war. That could mean an agreement. It could mean we're going to go into Buki dance next, where there's a orchestrated, so Trump can save face, a limited strike on Iran, maybe some coordinated reciprocity of a small strike like in June from Iran on an American base, and then an agreement that would be nuclear and leave out ballistic missiles for another day. Or there could be a military strike this week. I'm not sure President Trump and his team know the answer yet.
Okay,
Okay, so you can go to I-24, find the whole thing. I think it was played on Wednesday or Thursday. So next I'm going to play a clip of Ruth Wasserman Land talking about the same subject. Just because I find her very articulate and a good spokesperson and a good analyst. So here you go.
You know, obviously, as per usual, we're just going to have to wait and see how these talks actually go. I think everybody in the Middle East right now is really, on the edge of their seat, waiting for an answer here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to turn now to former member of the Knesset, Ruth Wasserman Lande. She's a research fellow at the Mizgav Institute for Strategic Affairs as well, just to kind of, get Israel's perspective when it comes to all of this. We know that Iran has repeatedly expressed its concern over Iran's ballistic missiles, its nuclear plan, its influence in neighboring countries. The list goes on here. How much influence does Israel actually have on the U.S., if any at all at this point? And how might a deal or the failure to make a deal ultimately shape Israel's military and strategic plans from here on out?
I sincerely do not believe that a deal will be struck. In other words, I don't think that we are facing a real belief by any one of the sides, by the way, the Islamic Republic of Iran included, that they will agree to any of the terms that had been laid out here.
Right.
This is the raison d'etre of that regime, providing money for the Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, for the Houthis in Yemen. This is the day-to-day, the very life of that regime, disintegrating and destabilizing the region, both for Arab countries and for Israel, not only for Israel, is something that is the very nature of this particular regime. I'm not even mentioning the horrifying things that they are doing to their own people. So they are not really there, in my humble opinion, to negotiate. Mm-hmm. Now, believing that Trump is the last person on the face of the planet who is naive, I don't believe he thinks that they will also give in to any of those demands, not even all of them, but any of them. And therefore, this is a stalling for time on both sides. Now, what I think is happening is a wish by the President of the United States to make a move that is detrimental to the regime. And that's not an easy task. It cannot be 50%. It cannot even be 70%. It has to be a real detrimental hit. And given the 92 million people country, the vast geographic size of the country, plus the fact that a lot of the arms are underground and are well hidden, there is something to be looked at. This is not a small task. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. And this has to be tackled correctly. And not only does the regime need to be toppled, but a Libya cannot ensue. In other words, there needs to be something stable to hold this huge country together in the day after, because if not only will it be another Libya, but Turkey and Qatar will come in no time to take up the vacuum.
Right.
She's right. And she's talked a lot about Turkey. Watch Turkey. Be careful with Turkey. Turkey's very clever. You're not going to see Turkey invading anybody directly. They're going to use the proxy methods that the Iranians have used, and they're doing it in Syria. In fact, this is from Al Akbar newspaper. Now, look, I know Al Akbar is a Hezbollah mouthpiece, but so I read it because I want to know what they're thinking. But they're at odds with al-Shara or al-Sharia in Syria and what he's doing. So here's the article yesterday. The The time has come for revenge against Hezbollah. This is a report that they said al-Shara was talking about that with his people in his meeting. What does that mean? Syria wants revenge on Hezbollah because Hezbollah worked with the Assad regime to keep down the jihadis in Syria. Now the jihadis in Syria are in charge. They want to get revenge. And Israel's looking at it, well, so here's the dilemma. We want them to go take out Hezbollah, but we don't want them on our northern border next to Metula and Kiryat Shimona and other cities up there because we can't trust them either. And they're a Turkey operation. So Turkey gets all the benefit of this from Syria expanding, and they don't, it's a problem. Hang on a second here. Why is that not? Here we go. Adding to the fears are reports of foreign fighters gathering near the border with Lebanon and a fabricated campaign against the resistance, that's Hezbollah, paving the way for a Syrian role linked to the war on Iran. So here's what's happening. Al-Shara and Turkey are sitting there licking their chops. Go, Trump, go. And as soon as he does something with Iran, they're going to expand what they're doing. They're going to move into Lebanon. At least that's their plan. They're going to move into Iraq. They're going to go against the Kurds. They hate the Kurds. This is their time to take care of them, they think. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But there are even some intelligence reports that suggest that Trump and al-Shara made some kind of a deal pushed by Tom Barrack. By the way, if Witkoff is the worst foreign policy advisor, analyst in any administration in American history, Thomas Barrack is worse. So I don't know how you can be worser than the worst, but he's awful. And a lot of people are running around D.C., even analysts are saying, is he our ambassador or is he Turkey's ambassador in the Middle East? And he's pushing all of this stuff. And so here's another, this is Jonathan Spire. I'll talk about with him about this tomorrow, the demise of Syria's Kurdish autonomy. And the Kurds helped defeat ISIS. And they're being abandoned. And Turkey's trying to go in, and Syria's going in there to roll them up. And as Jonathan Spire says, this represents a signal achievement for the Islamist authorities in Damascus in their efforts to build a centralized Sunni Arab Syria. So remember what I think it was Ruth Landy few weeks ago, a month ago, I don't know, recently. She said, listen, she wrote an article in Jerusalem Post, when Shia Islam head goes down, Sunni Islam rises up. So there is a theory. So this is where we have arguments in Bible prophecy in the green rooms. What's going to happen at Ezekiel 38? When does it happen? Okay, so I have a view it's later, and people don't like that. They said, no, Ezekiel 38 is going to happen before the rapture. And I'm not seeing it because there's a phrase in Ezekiel 39 that says, when this happens, then the nations will know that I am the Lord. Now, I think that means something, but then they don't act like it, because that's why I think it's sort of this part of this whole Armageddon scenario. That's just my conclusion right now. I'll watch the facts on the ground and see what happens. There's also a theory very common among a lot of my friends that when Ezekiel 38 happens, Islam is totally destroyed as an entity in the world. It's no longer something that we need to worry about. They'll be defeated so badly, and that's when Europe can rise up to power. Now, my view is this. Turkey, all these people in Islam, what do they want to do? They want to go to Jerusalem, right? So, in fact, here's a rally in Tehran. Of course, I can't find it. Anyway, they drug out what I refer to respectfully as the Dome of the Rock bouncy house. That big blow up Dome of the Rock thing that they do all the time. So they have these rallies there and they drag that thing out. So understand Turkey's going to do something. It's going to be very clever. It's also causing problems with Egypt. I think this is Ruth Land. So Egypt's rearing its ugly head. And they talked about this on I-24.
The Israeli Prime Minister has come out strongly against Egypt. He says that we have a relationship with them, but this needs to be monitored, and that we must prevent the Egyptian military from becoming too strong. Very, very interesting comments coming out now, and we're going to turn back to Ruth Wasserman Land, former member of the Knesset, to further discuss this. So basically, according to these Hebrew media reports, the Israeli Prime Minister said that because the Egyptian military is getting so much stronger, it needs to now be monitored. Break that down for us.
So importantly, I was the deputy ambassador at the Israeli embassy in Cairo for 3 years as well. I think it's relevant to the fact that I'm very passionate on the subject, and I've been also researching it for a very long time. And I've been saying for more than 2 years now, something in Egypt in terms of the infiltration into the very highest decision-making circles is concerning to me. Let's make everything clear. The strategic peace agreement between Israel and Egypt is important. Not for 1 second do I belittle or take any importance from it. However, there are very concerning infiltrations of Qatar and Turkey into Egyptian decision-making circles. And it's almost counterintuitive in a manner of speaking, because the regime in Egypt is against Muslim Brotherhood. And yet Turkey and Qatar are Muslim Brotherhood par excellence supporters. So what is going on? So let's look for a second at Sudan, a regional combat arena where Egypt is very much involved on the side of, surprise, surprise, Qatar and Turkey, as opposed to, let's say, the UAE, for example. That's one thing. Let's look for a second at the very, very strange comments made by the very highest leadership in Egypt towards Iran, a Shiite enemy of the Egyptian Republic forever. They've been clearly, bluntly, openly, overtly on the side of Iran on the 12-day war. During that time, when missiles were thrown into civilian centers and strategic targets in Israel, with whom Egypt has an agreement for over 40 years.
Right.
These were very blunt statements. They were not nuanced statements. These were statements saying, I'm on Iran's side. And this is not an ego issue. This has to really raise a red flag. What is going on? There is something there, a divergence of reliance from the US towards other actors. And that has been very clear with China, Russia, and other sources like Qatar, like Turkey, and so on. A huge buildup of military on the part of Egypt
I wanted
into
to touch on
Sinai.
that.
There is an inexplicable military buildup, not for 1 or 2 days, not for 1 or 2 months, not even for 1 or 2 years. This has been going on for several years by the Egyptians in the Sinai Peninsula, with a target towards war, with Israel being the target. This is clear from surveillance, from intelligence. It's not something that one can analyze, comment, consider. It's not against counterterrorism. It's against a country. So at a lack of a better explanation, what is going on?
And who knows? So here's Turkey. He was in Saudi Arabia this week. Then he went to, he had the King of Jordan came and gave him a medal at a palace in Istanbul. And Erdogan got teared up. I don't have the video clip of him in Saudi Arabia this week with Mohammed bin Salman. And they're walking around, as Arabs do, holding hands and everything. But Erdogan didn't look very well. So there's a lot of talk. Erdogan, maybe he's in decline. Maybe he's not going to last that long. His son, and now you're going to see a big fight for position to take over from Erdogan when he leaves the scene. May or may not run for office this next year. Don't know. It's kind of up in the air. His son is rising. There's also that former intelligence guy who's the foreign minister, Fidan. He's a very powerful guy in Turkey. So I don't know what's going to happen. This is a article at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, published about a month ago now, and it says the armed man on the Bosporus, Turkey. And I've talked about watching the rise of Turkey for a very long time. He has designs on Israel, on Jerusalem. And I'll just say, all the guys, you can believe that this final empire is going to rise out of Europe. I'm not there. I watch it. I collect data on it. Here's one data point that I got this week. This is from the Greek defense minister who was speaking at the India-EU defense forum, and this is what he had to say.
After the division in Berlin has gone away, Europe has come to believe that there's no need for defense and the American umbrella is enough. Let me give you an example on how much Europe has let its defenses down. We, Greece, are a mid-sized, maybe even small country. Yet again, the number of tanks we have are more than the tanks of the United Kingdom, of France, of Germany, of Luxembourg, of Belgium, and of the Netherlands combined.
Okay, so, the implication is that this empire is going to rise, going to be this big, powerful military thing to kind of control. And so you can believe that, you can make the case for it, but you got to deal with these logistical issues. So, and I know the response is going to be, somebody will say, tanks aren't that important anymore. Look at, Ukraine's taken out all of the tanks of Russia, and the war's still going on. And maybe that's true, okay? And, somebody in Europe told me, we're just going to use technology and drones. The only thing in Europe you're using technology for is to censor people. You're not using it for defense of the homeland or anything like that. Maybe that'll change. There's talk about spending money and all of that. Okay, that's fine. I'm just not seeing it. I've got a picture here of someone who I like a lot of what she says and what she stands for. And here she is this week. Wait for it. In my head, it's like the next slide. And now I can't find it. It's Giorgia Meloni sitting there in a meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister of Qatar, talking about all of our mutual interest. I hope she's lying to him, because he's lying to her. I don't understand this. I know. What do you think the end times are going to look like? So here's Turkey and Jordan getting this thing. And then I found this is a great thing. And so you can kind of see the map of the Eastern Hemisphere and the trade, the heat map of the people and the trade coming to Europe. And what's the area in red in the middle? It's Turkey. This is how people are thinking about this. So there's a big article this week, or a bunch of articles about this corridor through Azerbaijan, along the edge of Armenia, along the edge of Iran, for trade from Baku and Azerbaijan into Turkey. From the Caspian Post. Title of the article was, I think I forgot to put it in. And then there's this big report. It's a Saudi report, the strategic report on Iran. And it talks a lot about this, how Tehran will push back against the Zanzibar Zangezur corridor from this report. And here's a quote from the report. Turkey's support for the project is also examined in the context of a period of improved relations with Washington. Rasana, this is the institute that did the report from Saudi Arabia, assesses the corridor could significantly strengthen Ankar's geopolitical position in the Caucasus by linking Turkey to the Caspian Sea and Central Asia and transforming it into a key hub for energy transit and redistribution. That's the goal. That's why I keep saying, watch Turkey. Central Asia, that's a Turkish ethnic area. Advancing Ankar's broader vision of building a unified Turkic world through deeper Turkic-Azerbaijani connectivity extending toward the Caspian and Central Asia. Turkic world. And then when he meets with the king of Jordan yesterday in Istanbul, he's got all the warriors, like the ancient Turkish Ottoman warriors, like he's used before, like when Abbas came there. By the way, Abbas has said he wants elections. He's now in the 21st year of his 4-year term that he was elected to in 2005. And there's a concern of what's going to happen. I won't play the clip from Ruth Landy, who's talking about concern about what's going to happen if things break loose in the Palestinian areas, Judea and Samaria and Israel. Big problem. In fact, they think it's not a problem. Here's a video that I found. They say, well, it's just drones. I mean, how much can these drones bring in? Okay, here's a drone. Somebody in Palestinian area took a video of this and posted it. Look at this. All right, let me hang on the end of that and we'll see how much I'll get up. You're going to need a bigger drone. That's what they're going to say. So here, let's talk about this. So the new Middle East, that was from July of last year on Time. Now they're talking about after the Ayatollah. What's it going to look like? And there's a lot of talk. Are they going to be able to accomplish anything? In these articles at the in Al Akbar, it says, Time is an ally of Iran, not the USA. Trump does not seem to be telegraphing his plans, and they're right. But then this video appeared. So there's all these people killed in Iran. Last week I told you they're keeping the bodies away from the families. They've set up a website. Hey, if you are missing a relative, please log on to this website and set up an account, and we'll tell you what happened to your dead relative if we have the body. And the Iranian people aren't doing it because if they do that, they're now subject to arrest and execution. This regime is so evil. So the report was last week, they're keeping the bodies because when the U.S. or Israel attacks, they'll bring the bodies out and say, look at the carnage that Israel and the U.S. caused. Isn't this terrible? Here's the problem. They've killed so many people, they're running out of bodies. This was supposedly a body storage site in a city in Iran. Happened to catch fire. There's been fires all over Iran, but this happened. And so the question is, are they burning the bodies to get rid of the evidence? And by the way, this is a regime doing this that denies the Holocaust where they burned the bodies to get rid of the evidence. It's kind of ironic. Here is the son of Khomeini, the founder of the Iranian Islamic Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran, giving an interview on Al Mayadeen. It's an Arab channel. And he said, listen, every Muslim country without exception would do to Israel what Hamas did if they could. They all want the destruction of Israel. And this is a long interview. You can find it online. But don't believe, Steve Witkoff, don't believe what they're saying, okay? Go live in your little fantasy world. But I would just suggest you may not get a government, probably don't need a government pension because Qatar's already bought you out, but, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked. So here's the strategy. Change the government in Iran, support a popular uprising, regime change through a coup, a new nuclear agreement. The extremists in Israel or in Iran seem to want it. But the problem is, okay, so here's a government structure graphic that I got from Caspian Report, does a great job. I think he's from Azerbaijan. But, so you have the supreme leader. What they have all these layers around these guys. So if you take out one, the layer of the IRGC is going to take up for what's moved, what's gone away. I don't know how it works. Okay, I know that they're threatening missile strikes and everything. There's a lot of question about in the back in June when they did the attack, they kind of came across Jordan and Iraq. That's one route of attack. Other routes of attack would be the one there across Syria and Iraq. Don't know if they'll use that. And others have suggested maybe they could come down across Azerbaijan. That's pretty risky. They have a lot of assets there in the Indian Ocean, so they would attack from the south. They wouldn't violate, because all the red countries say, don't you dare fly over us. Now, Israel did that interesting attack on Qatar back in September, where they launched things over the Red Sea, and they didn't have to fly over Qatar. By the way, the one thing that there's no doubt about is Israel is the military power in the Middle East. It's amazing what they've done. I was listening to an interview with Dan Schultan on Aviv Rediger's program, Ask Aviv Anything, and it's very positive. You should look it up and find it. But he was saying is, we came back after the war. We thought all these European Jews are going to come in and populate the land, and they were all killed. So now we have nobody. We gave up some of the land because we couldn't populate it. You'll hear in the interview I'm going to do on Tuesday with Eliana, they are now. But it's amazing what they've done. Everybody said they're going to lose this war, they're going to lose this war. Dan Schulten says, listen, Nasser had a massive army. He lost. And he died of a broken heart. Good. And so Israel is the military power. So they do things that nobody else does. And I think the U.S. has some of those capabilities. So that could be, there's another suggested route coming in from Central Asia. It appears that there's some assets there that could come in. But there are tons and tons of sites that need to be attacked in Iran. So the question is, are Bibi and Trump doing a doctrine of deception? And there's a Twitter account called Intel_Sky. Go follow it. They talk about all the things that are going on. What are they going to do? What's the battle plan? And then this is a report that they did this morning. They just published it late last night. Listen, tons of equipment are being moved into the area. We've not seen anything like this since the Iraq War. I think there are 117, here it is, 118 C-17 flights have been arrived or are en route over the last few days to the Middle East. Have you ever seen one of those planes? I mean, I don't know how many tanks they could put on one of those planes if they're going to use it. They're huge. 118 of them have flown into the Middle East doing airlift. Northern encirclement for the first time. Iran is pressured from the north. In Turkmenistan, we have aircraft and Delta Force units positioned near Iran's northeastern border, likely for deep strike or targeted operations. In Armenia, there are U.S. forces positioned there for an attack from the north. So this could be a very active week, or nothing could happen. Jonathan Spire, again, I'll talk to him tomorrow morning about this article at The Spectator. Trump must help the Iranians bring down the Islamic regime. I mean, I think everybody agrees that that's the case. The question is, how do you do that? Okay. Okay, 5 minutes or so. Okay. So Tucker came out. So Trump's being very careful because he's got to protect his base because they become anti-Israel. Tucker comes out and says, "Oh, they're being awful to Christians." He does this interview in Jordan. Everything he said in that interview was a complete bold-faced lie. Even Carolyn Glick, who's working for Netanyahu now, comes out with this article, "The Truth About Israel, Middle East Christians." She picked up this thing from the Philos Project, which is run by Luke Moon, who I know. It says decline of the, so Tucker says, "Oh, that the Christian population is declining in Israel." No, it's gone up. It's declined as a percentage of the population. Why? Because Israel's exploding with Jewish population. So you would expect the percentage to go down, but the numbers, raw numbers are up. But look at what's happened. Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, from 1910 to today. Populations are down. So like in Iraq today, less than 1% of the country is Christian. Used to be 6.3. Syria, 15%, now less than 2%. Egypt, 18%, now less than about 5%. Turkey, 21%, now 0.28%. The site of the 7 churches written to in Revelation, 0.28% Christian. So get Carolyn's article and read it. They had a combating anti-Semitism conference. I'm going to play you a clip from that, and then a clip from Karis Ray from the Epoch Times. This is my friend Dumasani Washington speaking at the conference about why are they not going after Tucker for his lies?
Often Tucker Carlson becomes the lightning rod, or the iconic figure, and for good reason, right? But the Marjorie Taylor Greens, who wanted to outlaw people who are actually lobbying Congress for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship.
I think organizations like AIPAC and Christians United for Israel should register under the law as foreign agents, because they are lobbying on behalf of Israel.
And the Steve Bannon.
Israel is not an ally, they're a protectorate.
Long after Tucker had kind of busted that matrix open, you had conversations being had that were not being touched on at all. And part of the reason was because of fear. We said this before as well. This is what paralleled 10 years ago on the left, when it was Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and they were saying all these anti-Israel things. The issue wasn't just them. It was that the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers said nothing. That's where it's announced. That's exactly what's happening now. Prominent figures on the right say nothing because they're afraid of Tucker. They're afraid of, and let me go ahead and step into this, TPUSA that still platforms Tucker, if I can use that word, and says nothing about the anti-Semitic, anti-Christian stuff that he's saying. This is the same danger.
He's 100% right. I will tell you, I have so much respect for that guy. I interviewed him last week. Was it last week? Week before? Recently. It's on our YouTube channel. Go watch it. Very intelligent, passionate supporter of Israel. And it's funny, Tucker goes, "Well, I can go to Qatar because I'm an American. I'm free to do whatever I want." Okay, Tucker, I want to support Israel. I'm an American. I'm free to do whatever I want. Now let's have a conversation about it. But he's supposed to interview Huckabee. I pray that goes well. So here's Karis Ray. She's with Aaron Moran from Australia, talking about where has all of this stuff come from. Now, I've talked about it with Steve, the tour guide. I've talked about it with Trevor Loudon. And here's Karis Ray. She's sort of emphasizing what we've talked about before. And this is, I promise, pretty much the last thing. Here we go.
Can you tell us how we got here? What the solution to getting the hell out of here is? And how long these people can potentially command the kind of influence that they seem to?
Well, to try to keep it as brief as possible, there are a number of factors that got us to this current moment. It's not like this is being orchestrated by one singular individual or one specific group or even one foreign entity. There is a whole confluence of activity or ideas that have been circulating over the last few years, I would argue as far back as 2015, that have allowed us to arrive at this moment. So you have the pandemic. That's one thing that really kind of set the stage for a lot of the conspiratorialism that we're seeing emerge. You also have a reaction just to the left, especially by young males, as many people have talked about, such as Dana Loesch or yourself or Konstantin Kisin, right? You have a whole population of adolescents who have been told that they're toxic just for being white and males, and they've been told that they're racist and fascist and white supremacists. And a lot of them are now proudly embracing those titles in a very angry and reactionary way, where they're essentially saying, okay, fine. You want me to be racist? I'll be racist. So there is that whole component to it. But then there's also other things going on, such as an intellectual right-wing elite that has essentially provided much of the foundation and the undercurrent for many of these anti-Semitic and anti-American movements that we're seeing now, such as the Groypers or the Christian nationalists, for lack of a better term, and even some of the paleo-conservatives and the libertarians that are really embracing this nihilistic, extreme vision for America. And many people don't talk about the philosophical component. I certainly didn't know much about it. And I think that's because a lot of these intellectuals or philosophers, when you read some of their ideas, they don't actually sound that bad. And they might not be as extreme as the rhetoric that the Groypers say are pushing, but there is a clear line. It's kind of like they open the door, or it's like a gateway drug for a lot of what we're seeing to emerge. And these philosophers...
Right, they make it palatable. It's not so extreme that you go, oh gosh, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. It's okay, a little bit on the edge, but there's an element of legitimacy to it, or it makes it, and that's more dangerous sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it was Barry Weiss wrote a fabulous article years ago where she was talking about how educated anti-Semites are so much more dangerous than the uneducated ones because they're able to couch their language. But when I'm talking about these intellectual elites, I'm referring to people such as Patrick Deneen or Adrian Vermeule, also intellectuals such as Curtis Yarvin, if you could really call him that, or Nick Land, and then some of these older scholars that have been resurrected, like Mearsheimer, or even older Carl Schmitt, which was a premier Nazi political scientist, if you will. And so there's about 10 of these intellectual foundations that are all circulating. They keep popping up. Oh, another big one is Alexander Dugin, known as Putin's brain. And his ideas are just regurgitated almost verbatim by people like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson. And they're actually not shy about it, even though this guy is so clearly anti-American and so clearly wishes to reduce any sort of dominance or American exceptionalism in the global arena. So those are a few factors. There's others that we could get into, but I think those are three main ones. In terms of how we get out of this, oh man, I think that you have to fight it on all fronts.
And she's right. And so she was on a panel with Dumasani at the Combating Anti-Semitism thing. Gadi Taub was there, and I can't remember. There was somebody on the panel. You would know him. He's a conservative guy. James Lindsay, I think was his name. And anyway, they were talking about how do we fight this? I mean, how do you fight this? Because it's like Tucker's like he's like his own whack-a-mole game because he keeps popping up with more and more garbage all the time. And it's like by the time you figure out how to respond to it, he's on to the next 10 things. And it's hard and it's a problem. So can I take 3 minutes? My wife goes, you're going to do it anyway. You're right. She figured me out. So this is an interview the other day with Trevor Loudon. I've talked to him about the red-green axis, and he kind of builds on the themes that Karis Ray and Dumasani Washington were talking about. And here's what he says in his interview.
Another thing, there's a big move towards anti-Semitism and among
I was just going to ask you what is going on with that. What is going on with that?
It is purely a Russian-driven phenomenon. Purely Russian. That is, and that's why you get people like Nick Fuentes promoting it. That's why you get Tucker Carlson subtly promoting it. That's because the pro-Russian people are also very much moving in the anti-Israel, anti-Semitism direction. Mm-hmm. Why? Because Russia wants to dominate the Middle East, and Israel's the main impediment. So you got to break the bonds between Israel and the United States. And I've done this in the Democratic Party through using the left, Democratic Socialists of America, Palestine Youth Movement, the Hamas Front. They have been working on the left-wing Democrats. So now you've got to break the bonds with the right. So you're going to promote massive amounts of anti-Semitism on the right. Israel controls America. AIPAC is the big danger. The Rothschilds are the big problem. The Jews aren't really Jews. All this kind of crap. That is all old Tsarist propaganda.
Okay, so Trevor is correct. It's regurgitating a bunch of lies. And so let me just say this. So if you want to say Russia's involved in Ezekiel 38, 39, you got some ammunition from Trevor there because they're anti-Israel. In fact, there's pretty good evidence in the Epstein files that they worked with Ehud Barak, the Russians, because Ehud Barak wanted to come back to power. He hated Bibi Netanyahu. So what did he do? He imported 1 million Russians, at least 1 million Russians from Russia into Israel to flip the political demographic balance to try to get rid of Bibi. And you can drive around northern Israel, you run into Russian-speaking people all the time because there are a lot of them in a small country. So this is what they're doing, but this is Dugin, this is Alexander Dugin, Vladimir Putin, and they're all working together to do this because they don't like Israel. Israel they view as a big impediment to their ultimate agenda. And it's where the Reds and the Greens and the Islamists and everybody kind of unite. It's the focal point. That's prophetic. So my concern in all of this is this. Something's going to happen. Maybe this week, maybe next week, maybe today. May happen before I get lunch. I think Israel will prevail to the greatest extent, but this is where some of us have started using the term paradoxes in prophecy. We know this is going to happen, and the ultimate result, there's some bad things. Ultimately, it's good, and we want to be for peace, right? We want to do this, for example, here is an invitation for February 19th to the Board of Peace. Request the honor of your presence at the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace. I didn't check the mail yesterday. I don't know if I got one. I'm sure, and by the way, Israel's not invited. Israel's not invited. Bibi will be there this week. Maybe he's getting his invitation hand delivered to him. I don't know. This is crazy time. My concern is Israel might be successful, which we want, but they may let their guard down. It's happened so many times, so this is a concerning thing. So it's a paradox. They'll be successful, but in the meantime, there's some problems. And so we got to figure out, okay, now, where do we stand in that? Well, we stand for Jesus coming back and ruling and reigning. That's what we really want, right? So anyway, we're done. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much. Pray you'll bless us this week. Pray you'll give people time to dig into some of the fine details of the things we talked about today so we have better understanding, but give us a motivation of the times we live in to share the gospel with those around us at every opportunity. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen.